sell plants?
Oh, yeah.
I thought they sell like rain barrels and.
No, they've got a bunch of stuff in the whole back, because it used to be like a car place or something, and in their back they've got, I think they do a lot more like fruit trees and stuff like that, but I mean, I'm sure they could get whatever we wanted, you know.
And Southern States also donated the Christmas trees for our Christmas concert, so they might be open to donating again.
Does anybody have any ideas who to call them
Yellow pages?
What?
Yellow pages, I'm sure there's many plaque making shops.
I know the woman at
Virginia
the
shop.
engraving shop next to Bang. Is that what?
Oh, yeah, that's the
Yeah,
one.
yeah, the owner.
Or the place they did the Jefferson Cup.
Same thing.
Virginia shop?
Virginia shop, yeah.
I don't know if they do plaques, but they might.
Yeah, the engraving place would, Teresa. Would you mind asking that?
Sure.
Opening that? Thank you.
I'll send it.
Okay. Sounds good. But that doesn't address Sean, but I mean, is there
Yeah, for a plant.
You know, I don't know about this, but like crystal sometimes they'll do something like hands or, you know, cute things that,
Yeah.
what does she like?
She loves plants. She lives out near me, and she's really into the garden, and that's what she's doing.
Maybe a
right
gift
now.
certificate or something?
Like a potted azalea or something that she could replant.
As long as it's only deer resistant.
Okay.
She should have
Yeah.
problems with the deer, but yeah.
You can buy like Seems fitting to give him a large.
Oh, I know.
Yeah, and I like
that.
that idea. So, do you talk to her?
So maybe like a gift certificate to a gardening place for Sean and a plaque and a tree for Mr. Brock, is that what sounded like you were saying?
Yep.
That could be also something I could look into, is asking, you know, for a gift certificate for her, for either fifth season or Southern States or something like that.
Okay.
Yeah, I think she's fine.
Thank you. Okay. Do you know if it's shade or sun? Well, I guess
She's
it's
got
not
both,
shade.
yeah.
Grant?
And maybe just want to have Emily talk to Megan about funding and how we can.
Yeah, we definitely need to check in with Emily, check in about funding. And if there's not money set aside, then we could like just ask for contributions, like everybody gave a few bucks and I'm sure it would add up.
So I guess you need to tell them both that they can't watch this video either, once I post
That's
it.
right. They probably won't get the email anyway. That's 50/50. Okay, so speaking of the spring concert, Ms. Tobin spoke to me briefly today, and she really likes the help with decorating for the concerts. The winter concert I thought was really fun for the kids, especially the parents who came in. So if you're interested in decorating the spring concert, I think there's not a theme that we really need to decorate around other than just spring and flowers and stuff. From what I've seen in the music room, they're talking a lot about like personal values, character traits, friends, planting seeds like in the heart that are going to grow, and so just kind of spring growth ideas. But I'll be sending out an email to probably a few of you that have helped out before, and if you have an interest, please contact me. All right, also International Day is coming up, and this is one of my favorite events at the school, and my kids love it. They still have their passports from last year. It's on June 5th, Tuesday, June 5th, and it will be from 8:30 to 11. My understanding is that 8:30 to 11 will be kind of classrooms rotating through here, where there's the passport with the trifold station set up representing different countries. A lot of the 5th of. So a lot of the kids or families that are from different countries or have associations with different countries set up stands. If parents are interested in representing, I studied Italian in college, so I might set up an Italian booth because I haven't seen that represented before. But contact either April Hoffman or Leslie Scally, who are the ESL teachers here. It's a wonderful event, and it's great to see a lot of families that we don't typically see come out and get involved in their dress and with bringing their food from their home countries and so forth. We're working on getting guest speakers. There's a possibility of there being an assembly after afterward, or maybe in the early afternoon, kind of separate from time, but, associated with the International Day. And I think maybe we might have dance the child from our school dancing in the performance, possibly, Asha.
Yeah.
I'm looking into the Worldwide Wahoos, which is an organization at UVA that connects community needs with speakers and performers in the university community, so hopefully we'll get some African dance or drummers. If anybody has connections, that's really the kind of missing part right now. PTO is going to help financially a little bit with the supplies for the more interactive part here with the kids, and certainly there are volunteers needed for that, but at this point the big void is kind of planning performers and guest speakers.
That's for the international? No.
That would be for the, hopefully, they're hoping to do, I think, 2 o'clock in assembly. That's part of the
And you
day
want
celebration.
dancers.
And how does it, or does the performances in the auditorium? And then all children go?
And all the children will go. That's my understanding, and it's still kind of taking form. And this part is a new addition. Like typically, it's just, I think, then in the morning, right, where the kids have come through and enjoyed food, like local restaurants have donated. And, it's really wonderful. But hopefully, the assembly portion works out. I think it'll be really nice. Any other questions?
What are the hours again of this? The morning part?
The morning part will be 8:30 to 11.
The last day of school Friday?
The
The
8th.
eighth.
We have half days and all those days.
The
I don't
last
think we-
day,
yeah.
the last day they get out at 1 o'clock, but other than that, everything.
I don't know if this helps at all anything, but I know that the Festival of Cultures is this weekend.
Yeah.
And I don't, maybe if anybody goes, I'm sure those are, maybe will be people that might be okay for this.
Yeah.
I would be interested in coming into that.
Yeah.
I don't know if anyone's planning on going, but.
Well, Sherry Stewart, so she has 2 kids at Johnson, so she's, I think, one of the organizers, I think. And so she would probably know a lot about it, and
Yeah.
about Asian dance.
Yeah, I know April's been in contact with the Burmese community group, Sherry probably, to get them possibly to be in performance. But yeah, if you guys go and you see, I know there was like a Tibetan calligrapher, and there are all sorts of neat things there. I can't go this year, but feel free to reach out and get some contact information from people. All right, and I do one more little thing. I love the feedback in the PTO box. I've only gotten 2. We've only gotten 2 this year, but here's one. Is there any alternative to taking away recess as punishment? Recess is necessary for kids, not a privilege. I think that's a legitimate question, and that's been a concern in our household sometimes. And I know Mr. Bach has been willing to talk about that with us, and it's an interesting conversation. I don't have the solution to it, but there have to be consequences for the kids, but the school is limited in what kind of consequences can be administered. It's not a punishment. You don't use that word punishment because it's not a punishment, it's a consequence, which is part of growing up and understanding the relationship with the world. But I think, does anyone have any thoughts or experience with that? I mean, I don't agree with recess being taken away, but I don't know any alternatives either, really.
Because I think homework is also supposed to be done during recess too, if they don't do it. So it's also being used in that way.
It's a very delicate balance, I think, between trying to figure out like what currency the students run on and figuring out what's going to work for them as far as motivating them. And so it's really not like, I mean, I think I can speak for all the teachers at Johnson. We're not taking away ever the entire recess, never ever the entire recess. And we all understand that kids need to be able to play and run, and it's just very interesting and very individualized, I think, depending on the child about what they need and what's going to work for them. So it's never like that's our number one punishment, take away recess. And I think that we all understand that this probably isn't the best way to do it, but unfortunately sometimes that's just what works for some kids. To be honest with you, I mean, sometimes that's it.
What kind of increments are is it taken away? Like, is it like 10 minutes, 15 minutes, or?
It's
not standardized.
I just, If they don't do homework, sometimes 5 minutes. Now, if they've gotten in trouble during the day and sent to the office, sometimes they'll say they want to keep them up there for recess, and then they've made that decision.
Yeah,
I've
once
never
a child
done
is in the
that.
office, it's the office's decision.
If we're speaking for kindergarten in general, I think that, you know,
Oh, yeah.
if a child is doing something wrong at recess, then they have to sit out for a little bit. And that's
Yeah.
just learning, honestly. I don't think that a lot of teachers use it as a punishment.
Right.
And I've never done more than 5.
Yeah, it's not been, I mean, I substitute a little bit, I've never seen it used as a punishment, but a consequence for homework certainly, and it depends upon the student and the teachers, you guys all have good relationships with the students, but if that's a concern, then I would encourage you to bring it to the teacher or to Mr. Bach. So I would love to dedicate the rest of the time to thoughts, discussion about the principal forum coming up. I can tell you that I will be on the panel, the interview panel, which is occurring this Friday, and Jelaine is the second parent that central office chose. Stephanie Randolph, who's kindergarten,
First grade.
first grade, I was getting that confused. And Deborah McKeon are going to serve as the staff representatives. And I found out today that we will be interviewing from basically 8 to 4:30, and that the questions will be provided for us, and we will kind of ask the questions in a round robin format, with possibility, I think, of follow-up questions, although I'm not clear on that. So
Do we get to provide any questions?
that was not my impression from the email, and
Why?
that is the only email that, so,
I think they're given select questions that they have to ask every candidate.
Sure.
And that's the same way with teachers, they're already pre-selected from years gone by.
yeah.
Now, the forum next Tuesday.
Will be different.
We write.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so that's what we wanted to spend some time tonight formulating the questions, because they literally read the questions that we provide from the index card. And then.
And are all the questions written in advance for the parent forum on Tuesday?
No.
Well, we just thought it would be good to put our heads together and begin to think of
So what I
something.
mean
Yeah.
is when the parent forum is actually occurring, is there an opportunity that somebody who's there that day can ask a question that they just thought of or that they didn't attend this meeting or something, or?
Okay, so my understanding, Molly, correct me if you have a different opinion, but we'll be handed index cards as we enter the auditorium. On those index cards, we each write one question, and those questions are collected by some central office authority and then kind of organized to represent the questions that kind of overlap. And they will be directed to each candidate. Each candidate will have the same questions and approximately 30 minutes to respond. There'll be 3 candidates. So it might go over a little bit, but we've tried to get the ESL families to know about this in advance so that they can start articulating their questions, and also made some contacts with Abundant Life so that families that aren't able to come to these meetings or aren't able even to look through the folders when they come home every night will have a little heads up and maybe some encouragement to share their questions. But like, I've worked with the neighborhood association, and when we have interviews of candidates, we often will formulate questions in advance, not to discourage people from asking their individual questions, but so that we collectively know that like certain fundamental questions are going to be answered. So that's, I think, the kind of organization you're thinking about tonight.
Do we know the questions that are already going to be asked? So we're not kind of repeating.
I don't know of any questions that are, like, we're going to create the questions. that
I
are
thought that at the beginning, okay.
Yeah,
My
that's
understanding,
my-
there's already a question that are going to be asked
Only
of
for the
them,
internet,
that they,
that's for the interview.
okay. But we don't have anything to do with
Just a heads up, I'm gonna be driving back to town on Tuesday, so I more than likely won't be able to film, so I don't know if anybody else could fill in for that, but I think obviously it would be something that was important if it could possibly be filmed and posted. If somebody else could film it, we can post it on the same thing I've been posting on YouTube or whatever. But like I said, I'm not gonna be probably available. I'll be driving back into Charlottesville that night, so.
You might be only,
Double check if that's allowed. I mean, like, just think of any interview you've ever been in. If you was having that filmed and put it on internet,
Right.
you know, like,
That's
it
a
just, I think that's very double checking.
That's-
I
Right.
think it probably would be permitted because, I mean, I totally agree that there are some really great advantages to doing that. But some of these candidates have home environments that they don't want to know, be aware of the fact that they're.
Does it work so?
So Dr. Atkins has been clear about that
Yeah.
with us, yeah.
They're trying to protect their confidentiality. That was brought up in a number of different ways. Yeah, their current jobs, so there's nobody's current jobs, because
Two of those
people won't be hired, so if they don't want to advertise that they're looking for that, I think there's 10 on Friday, that's my understanding.
Right.
And they're gonna put that to how many, more Tuesdays?
Then
3.
So they have, I think there are 26 applicants. They'll whittle it down to 10 on Friday, and then it'll be, and then down to 3 for next Tuesday.
Do we know when it will be announced?
The selection.
Oh, when the
When she makes her.
chosen.
Yeah, I'm the chosen one.
I think she makes her decisions, apparently she meets with them, everybody rates, after all the questions, you get to write on a card, your first choice, second choice, third choice. She takes note of that, and then she meets with the candidates afterwards and asks follow-up questions, and I think she's essentially makes up her mind, like, within 24 hours.
However, the process then continues through the school board.
Yes, it has to be finalized with the school board.
So it probably wouldn't be announced until the school board, until Dr. Atkins and the school board have that conversation and the school board votes officially. Which would be, I think June 7th is their next scheduled meeting, but Dr. Atkins said, they can hold kind of spontaneous meetings too, or last minute meetings. So it might be before then, but I would guess at the latest June 7th.
Yeah, I knew they wanted to, which is why I thought that they moved it, because originally they were gonna have it before on the 22nd, and then they suddenly moved it up to the 15th, and I think it was partly because they want it in motion well before school's over. So my thought from all that information is that they'll have an impromptu school board meeting. We don't know for sure.
I had a feeling she said that we would know before school's out,
Yeah,
and she was here.
and she said well before, I remember her clearly, she said, we'll know well before school's
Yeah.
out. So,
And then
I
will
think
the-
it was bumping too close, the 22nd was bumping too close to the end.
And then will the new person who's chosen for principal then choose the assistants? Because we're not part of that at all.
Yeah, that's what I was
That's a big question mark, is the process now with Mr. Bach leaving, the principal usually, I think, is a main player in choosing the assistant principal, or was with Ms. Muir coming here. But now we don't know, so that's a question for central office, and I'd be delighted to
But we're
ask
much
it.
less involved in that.
Yes, yeah.
I don't think it's gonna, I think it's gonna be chosen. I don't think there'll be an interview kind of a thing.
By central office.
Yeah.
For the assistant principal.
It'll be
Not a
appointed.
public.
There's two processes. One is appointed, and one is what we're going through with the principal. And it seems about half the time it's appointed, and about half the time it's this process. My guess is this will be appointed.
Yeah, I spoke to the head of HR today, and she said it will probably be an appointment, depending on who the principal is, that person may be involved, but if they're not from the area, then it's not as valuable in that knowing. So she said they have very, very good candidates for the AP position already.
Oh, and they opened that position for the advertising
On
Friday.
Correct.
Oh,
So
they
it's
did.
already been discussed by.
So apparently,
They announced
Mr.
the staff.
announced the staff on Friday, at the same time that they.
Posted it.
And do we know, we're allowed to know this, but was Sean appointed to get a green card? Okay.
That was central office's decision, yeah.
So we just want things like, those big.
So it seems like.
Which actually, I would say, that's a fantastic thing. Like, it would be far harder to come in as a principal with an AD who's only been here for 1 year.
Yeah.
So I actually think this is a marvelous scenario for a new administration to really get their feet under them and Ms. Muir not feel overshadowed by a new principal. So given the fact that we're transitioning to principals, it's perfect time to move these. So the question now is, what are our questions for the candidates?
So So Michelle Smith couldn't be here, but she did some quick internet search on questions that you might ask a principal, candidate for principal. I'm happy to read those, just quickly, and then we can talk about them. Yes, sound good, okay. Please tell us what is special about yourself and what areas you would like to improve on. If you are offered this position, list your top 5 priorities for starting a new year with the new staff. What are your professional goals for the next 5 to 10 years? What should teachers and staff expect from their principal? How have you helped others develop discipline, intervention, or behavior plans? How would you involve parents in the education of their children? Please describe the role you feel parents should play in the operation of the school. What experience have you had in working with low-income and at-risk students? What discipline standards or procedures have you found to be effective when dealing with students? How would you describe your leadership style? What are the traits of an effective principal? What do you think is your most outstanding contribution to your present school district? What tasks or responsibilities do you typically delegate, and what do you do yourself? What programs or projects have you been responsible for implementing? Describe what you consider to be a good teacher and how do you make sure teachers are living up to your expectations? What strategies would you use to engage high-risk parents in the school process and encourage them to be involved? Schools tend to take on personalities of their own that are generally influenced by the leadership style of the building principal. Based on this, what would Johnson School look like if you were the principal? What do you feel are the key components of maintaining high staff morale? When you visit a classroom, what are the first things you look for as signs that the classroom is an effective learning place? As a new principal in a school, how would you go about building relationships of trust and collaboration with staff, parents, and students?
Just from personal experience, I don't know how we can incorporate this into a question necessarily, but I know that Richard's first day of school here, when we had come to register him, Mr. Box that came up to him and said, hi, I'm Mr. Bach, come to me on the first day of school and see if I remember your name, or something to that effect. And Richard did, and Mr. Bach remembered his name. And the assistant teacher later told me that Richard came to class that day, was all happy and said, me and Mr. Bach are good friends. There was an immediate connection. And I don't know what everybody else's experience, but I think that I've always been impressed that Mr. Bach knows every single child's name. And I think that's incredibly important.
Tom was the same way,
Yeah,
It's incredibly important. The kids, feel like they have a place. They feel welcome. This is their second home. And I just think that, I was amazed at very first day, Richard was just like, I feel good, I feel safe, I feel, a connection with the man in charge, and I don't know if there's a way to, like I said, incorporate that in question.